Okay, you can do this. Let's go. It's actually been so long I haven't talked to a camera that I completely forgot how to act. But that's okay. What's up guys? Darius in here, back with what looks to be a video for Vlogs of Knowledge. No, I'm not dead. No, I haven't quit YouTube. Nothing bad happened. I actually took a break to create something awesome. To create this, what you're watching right now. I'm not going to spend any time explaining what it is because I think it'll make sense as we go along. So let's just get right into it. Your main character for this adventure is a level 70 magician named Diocles. You can actually see him right there at the top left of your screen. Your stats are typical to that of a mage. You have maxed out magic, 99, which is very good, and also very high intelligence of 91, which is going to be very useful. Magicians in general, as long as they're able to use their spells if nothing bad happens, are a very ridiculously dangerous class. You have like one of the highest DPSs in the game, so make sure that you use it. The setting for this whole adventure is ancient Greece, but more specifically, the year is 582 BC. You start off in Athens, the capital. It's summertime, the sun is out, the birds are chirping, and it's very hot. Greek summers in general have a tendency to be really hot and really dry, and you definitely feel it today. As you're walking in Athens on this beautiful summer day, you, along with every other player in the Greek server, suddenly get a server-wide announcement that a new single instance quest has just become available. You can actually see it right here. Now, single instance quests, to put it very simply, are like difficult adventures. They only appear once, only one player gets to do them, the player and his party, and they're only for level 70s, the maximum in this game. Now, when you get these quests, you have to act fast because, like I said, there's only one person that gets to do it. It's the first person that gets to the coordinates. Now, luckily for you, you look at the coordinates and you notice that they're very close. Like, they're really not far from where you are. Being level 70 yourself, you decide to take on this quest. I mean, the rewards you could get were so worth it. You get there and kind of realize that you're like the first. Now, the person that sponsored this quest is a guy named Theseus. Theseus was the famous Greek hero who, according to Greek mythology, founded the city of Athens, the very city you are in right now. Like, he was serious. He was half divine and half mortal, which explains why his level is higher than 70. Theseus is kind of surprised that you got there so fast, but you notice that he's equally glad as well. He tells you that he has a very important quest that he needs you to do. He tells you that he has a best friend called Persephone, who is currently stuck in the Underworld. Persephone was also half divine, but his father was Zeus, who had him through one of his numerous illegitimate affairs. As for the reason why Persephone is stuck in the Underworld, that's actually pretty interesting. What had happened was that a long time ago, the two best friends were looking for wives to marry, and being half divine, they wanted wives with some divinity in them as well. After much thought, they decided to marry daughters of Zeus, because Zeus had a reputation for having many children. And yes, I know, Persephone was a son of Zeus, so technically, that's kind of incest. But don't worry, the Greeks did not care at all. Theseus chose Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in Greece, or should I say the most beautiful child in Greece, because he abducted her when she was only 13 with plans to keep her hidden until she was old enough to marry. Persephone, on the other hand, wanted someone else. Someone, I guess, a little bit less accessible. He wanted Persephone, the queen of the Underworld and the wife of Hades. Now, since Theseus had already gotten his wife, I mean, she was ready for him as soon as she got old enough, Persephone asked him for help to get his by going to the Underworld with him and helping him take Persephone out. Theseus, being such a great friend, agreed, and they both made the journey. In the Underworld, after walking for many long hours, they suddenly see a rock in the distance and decide, you know what, we're tired, we've been walking for a very long time, let's rest on this rock. As soon as they sat down, they were unable to move. You had like serpents that grabbed their hands and stuck them to the rock. They remained there for many long years, trapped on that rock and still unable to move. It wasn't until Heracles came, while he was doing something totally different, his 12th laborer, that he saw the two best friends. Heracles managed to somehow rescue Theseus, but when he went to try to grab Persephone was literally sucked out of the Underworld and disappeared into thin air. Heracles then brought Theseus out. A few years had passed, and he sponsored this single instance quest. Theseus tells you that you have to get Persephone out from the Underworld. You have to go in, find out where he is, and find a way to get him out. He tells you that he would have done it himself, like he thought about it, but if he did, Hades would most probably not let him escape a second time. Somebody else had to go in. Somebody that Hades would not necessarily expect. And that's kind of where you come in. You are that someone. You think to yourself that this is a pretty hard quest. I mean, this was the Underworld. Bad things can happen, and bad things probably will happen. But you're level 70, so you're kind of up for it. The Underworld was the place in Greek mythology where souls went to after their death. But you didn't always have to be dead to enter it. For example, there were a few people who had gone into the Underworld while alive, such as Heracles during his 12th labor, which we just mentioned, Orpheus when he was trying to rescue his wife, but unfortunately failed at the very last minute, and then Odysseus when he was simply trying to get back home. Getting into the Underworld wasn't really the problem. It was more so what were to happen once you were in, and possibly how you were to get out. And to get into the Underworld, you figure you might as well follow the footsteps of Heracles. I mean, he did it once, he was successful, and he came out. So maybe if you take the same path he did, you'll be successful as well. His story was very popular by that point. Everybody knew of his 12th labor, and everybody knew he went into the Underworld through an entrance that he found near a cave in Laconia. You make your preparations, discuss some final details with Theseus, and then you make your way to the entrance. Before we continue, I have to talk a little bit about the Underworld so that you know what it actually was, because there are some common misconceptions that might come back to bite you. First of all, this wasn't the Greek version of hell, and it wasn't the Greek version of heaven either. It was sort of like both. The general image of the Greek Underworld was that it was comprised of 3 levels. The main level, the one where most people went to, was called the Asphodel Meadows. That was a place for like neutral souls, people who weren't exceptionally good, but who weren't bad either. There, they just lived out the rest of eternity with no real sense of purpose. There was like no social classes, no rich or poor, and no progress of any kind. The best word I have for this is that it was boring. Above that, you had a place called the Elysian Fields, which you can consider as the heaven of the Greeks. That place was reserved only for exceptional people. People like Achilles, for example, or even Socrates. There, they had no worries, no labor, and no troubles of any kind. And then, way below, so deep that some people consider this to be a totally separate place, was Tartarus, the deepest point in the Underworld. That was hell. That's where the Titans were currently trapped, and that's where all souls would go to be punished eternally. Okay, enough history, back to you. You go to the cave, you find the entrance, and you look around one last time in case you never see this world again. Like, this was serious. You were venturing into a place where very few people had gone to before. Even though you are level 70, you're still scared. Once inside, you meet Charon, the ferryman of the Underworld. Charon was the one who would lead souls into the Underworld, provided you had a coin with you. He quickly realizes that you're not one of these souls, you're alive. But he doesn't seem to care all that much, like he's seen mortals in the Underworld before, and he has let them in. All he really wants is his coin. Luckily for you, once again, Theseus knew about this and he gave you the coin to give to Charon. Which is a very good thing, because if you didn't have this coin, then you would have been stuck, not in the Underworld, but in a sort of limbo between the Underworld and the world of the living. That's actually why in Greek burials, they would always place gold coins on the mouth of the deceased to give to Charon. Now look, so far you haven't really had any troubles with this quest, but don't think that this is going to be easy. You're being treated very nicely here because you're doing a single instance quest. If people don't treat you this nicely, then the quest will become impossible. Just wait to see what's gonna happen next. Charon brings you to the Asphodel Meadows, the place where Persephone was last seen. You look around, and you see many souls walking around aimlessly. You're actually surprised as to how many there are. You try to talk to some of them, but they are completely unresponsive. It's like their humanity had simply vanished. Nobody is going to help you here. Something you should know about the Underworld, since you're in it right now, is that it had a king, Hades. Does that sound familiar? That's because that was the brother of Zeus. He got the realm when he, Zeus and Poseidon, drew lots on which parts of the universe they would each control. Zeus got the sky, Poseidon got the sea, and Hades got the Underworld. Hades wasn't the Greek devil, like he really wasn't. He was very similar to, I guess, Poseidon. He just got a part of the universe and took great care of it. He even had a massive palace that was rumored to have always been filled with guests. You're smart enough to know that if he's the overseer of this entire underworld, then he obviously knows you've been here from the moment you stepped into this realm. And judging by the fact that you're still alive, you conclude that he's not ready to kill you quite yet. Theseus was right to send you. Hades might actually be open to having a conversation. You figure that that is the best approach you can take in this situation. But like, how do you find Hades and his palace? You literally don't even get a chance to think of a plan when suddenly the floor opens up in front of you and you see a massive staircase leading to fire. Or is that lava? You look around and you see that nobody around you is reacting in any way. It's like they can't even see the opening themselves. What are you gonna do? I mean, this was the underworld and you don't know where else to go. You decide to go in. As you're going down, you feel the heat in the atmosphere, if you could call it that. You're going to a very hot place. Let's just hope for your sake that it's not Tartarus. You get to the end of the staircase and wow, you see a massive, but I mean massive palace in front of you. The first thought you have is that it looks a lot like Mount Olympus, the residence of Zeus and the other gods of the Olympian pantheon. But like, this is the dark version of it. When you get there, you find Hades waiting for you right at the entrance. He welcomes you and asks what a mortal like you is doing in the underworld. Now look, this was Hades. Look at his stats and look at his HP. That's terrifying. He can probably kill you in one hit if he really wanted to, and that's probably what's gonna happen. You decide to not lie to him, to be completely honest, and you tell him the whole story. You tell him about Theseus, about Persephone, about Heracles, and how you're here to get Persephone out. Hades listens carefully. He seems to be very attentive to what you're trying to say, but you can't help but feel powerless in front of him, especially when he looks the way he looks. Hades takes a pause and replies back in a calm demeanor that he hates Persephone. He hates him for what he tried to do, to come into the underworld, the place where he lived, and to try to take his wife, Persephone. Like, how would you feel? He's not gonna let him out. In fact, that's why he allowed Heracles to rescue Theseus, but not him, because he was the one with the worst intentions. Okay, that's kind of deep, but now you have to know about Persephone, because Persephone has a very interesting story. She was the queen of the underworld and the wife of Hades, like we covered that, but she wasn't in that position necessarily by choice. What had happened was that a long time ago, while she was innocently picking flowers in her garden, Hades appeared, abducted her, raped her, and took her to the underworld. Her mother, Demeter, sister of Zeus, then went looking for her for many long years, of course unable to find where she was. I mean, she was in the underworld being raped by Hades. Demeter was the goddess of the harvest, and while looking for her daughter, she brought on a great drought to the Greek people. The people then complained to Zeus, and he literally had no choice but to force Hades to return back Persephone to her mother. But before doing so, Hades tricked her into eating fruit from the underworld, which caused her to be stuck in there for 1/3 of the year. As you can imagine, Persephone, her mother Demeter, and even Zeus were not too happy about this current arrangement. Hades looks at you and sees that you're level 70. You must be decently powerful, especially since you're a mage. He's gonna give you a chance, if you can call it that, because it's really not a chance. Like, don't think for 1 second that Hades actually wants to release Persephone. He warns you that you're not gonna like what he has to say. He's gonna ask you to do something that was once deemed impossible. You see, we already talked about Heracles and how he tried to rescue the two best friends. And we said that the two best friends were not the reason why he went into the underworld. He was there as part of his 12th labor, which consisted of defeating Cerberus, the massive dog that guards the entrance, and then to take him out. But he had to do it without using any of his weapons. Something that everybody thought, even Hades, would be impossible. But of course, this was Heracles. He did it. So Hades tells you that if you want to rescue Persephone, you're gonna have to do the impossible. You're gonna have to defeat Cerberus yourself with the same condition. No weapons. But there's something else. Hades tells you that since you're immortal, if you fail, your soul is not getting out of here. You're going to be stuck in the underworld, trapped forever. Now look, this is scary. This is actually very scary. This was Cerberus. He was very difficult. And magicians, while they technically don't need any weapons to cast spells, they do lose a lot of damage potential barehanded. But I mean, really, like I understand the situation, it's very scary and you want to get out, but there's no going out. Like the only way you're getting out of the Underworld is if you defeat Cerberus. That's kind of what you expect from a single instance quest. There's absolutely no warning, there's no preparation, you're simply teleported in front of Cerberus. Once you come into visual contact with the dog, you are shocked. He is much bigger than you had anticipated. The fact is, you've never seen this boss before. I mean, the only time you could see him was if you were dead, and clearly you're still alive. At least for now. This is going to be a tough fight. Since you're the one who initiates the fight, you get to go first. Congratulations. The first thing you do is you want to test an ice storm spell to see what kind of damage you can do if you completely submerge him in a storm. You don't really know how much damage you're gonna do, so might as well try it. You cast it, but it doesn't deal too much damage. You suddenly get an uneasy feeling that this fight is not gonna last too long. Now it's Cerberus' turn. Having 3 heads, he uses them in a 3-hit combo that severely damages your right hand. He practically almost bites it right off. And he also removes half of your HP. You realize that this dog is smart. He knew to attack your right hand because that's your dominant hand, which deals the most damage with spells. Your uneasy feeling from the previous turn kind of intensifies. You decide to use some of the health potions you have to heal yourself as much as you're allowed to per turn, and then you decide to use your ultimate special attack because really, what else do you have at this very moment? Your special attack is very interesting. It consists of spawning large icicles inside the enemy's body and then like ripping them out with magical force. You cast it, but the icicles don't even make it out of Cerberus. Like you deal a little bit of damage, but nothing significant. This time, Cerberus decides to use his tail, a live serpent, in a precise attack to your left leg. It deals a lot of damage, but not as much as the previous turn. Thankfully, but you're not poisoned. This isn't looking very good. You think about healing yourself, which I mean you could and you should, but ultimately in the long run it would be pretty useless. His attacks deal more damage than what you can heal yourself for each turn, so it would like only be a matter of time before he defeats you. You think for a second and you realize that you have one attack that you could potentially use. One that could maybe work. It's an attack that spawns a huge block of ice and crushes the opponent with it. You decide that that is the best approach you can take for this turn. You heal yourself and you cast it on Cerberus. To your honest surprise, it hits Cerberus on one of his heads, crushes it, and renders it completely unusable for the rest of his fight. Wow, good job. His attacks most probably are going to deal a lot less damage. Or so you think. The thing is, up until this point, Cerberus was only using basic attacks. He was only warming you up. This turn, it's about to get real. He leaps very high and hurls down at you with a force that seems to be a lot more than just gravity, only to crush you with this incredible attack, shaking the entire Underworld with him in the process. That's something you really did not expect. I'm sorry, but that attack dealt more damage than your remaining HP. Which really was to be expected. Like you realized during this fight that this was going to happen. This was Cerberus, one of the strongest bosses in the Greek server. There was no way you were going to solo it, especially as a mage with nobody to protect you and no weapons. Like you see Heracles approaching in the distance with a smirk on his face. He comes and welcomes you to your new place of residence, your permanent place of residence. That was the deal. You had to fight Cerberus, you got one shot, and if you were to fail, your soul was going to be trapped in the Underworld forever. It's game over. Or is it? Remember that you're smart. You have 91 intelligence. That's going to prove to be very useful. There was no way you would have went into the Underworld fully knowing the risks involved without some sort of protection if anything was to go wrong. What you had done is you had told Theseus before going in that if anything bad were to happen, if anything were to happen that would prevent you from getting out, he was to go to the Greek gods and ask for help. I mean, because he was half divine, the gods would surely listen to him. The thing is, you didn't tell him to go to any god. You mentioned somebody in particular. Who was it? Was it Heracles, the one who's been in the Underworld before, has dealt with Cerberus, has taken him out successfully? Or was it Persephone, the queen of the Underworld, the wife of Hades, who's currently stuck there for 1/3 of the year, and Zeus, Demeter, and her are not too happy about this current arrangement? That choice, of course, is up to you. So here's what you have to do. It's actually very simple. There's a link in the description, click it, and you'll be taken to a poll. Otherwise, you can just go to my channel, hit the community tab, and then you'll find a poll with Heracles and Persephone. Please, before voting, please trust me on this. Make sure to read the comments and leave your own comments, because you can all leave comments, and collectively work together before you vote, because these choices are serious. They have consequences. You guys have like 24 hours to vote, after which I'm gonna upload part 2, whatever you guys have chosen. These videos are pre-recorded, so you guys don't have to wait literally for anything. So go ahead, vote, work together, talk together, engage in a community, and I will see you all tomorrow. I hope that you guys will make the right choice. My name has been Darius, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back to this channel and for watching it, and I will see you all tomorrow. Good luck.